Has she gone or is she here? Kathleen Kennedy's employment status is queer.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce to you that Star Wars has been saved, as Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, will be moving on from her post. And Kathleen Kennedy being the president of Lucasfilm means that every single decision made for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all had to be run through her. Every single idea to be implemented, she had to sign off on, and she is the one who is ultimately responsible for every single thing that Lucasfilm produced. And the first thing that comes to my mind would be a little small trilogy of movies, episodes 7, 8, and 9, that under her leadership decided to not do any planning on where those movies would go, no roadmap, no through line. Let's just make it up as we go along. You know, for that last one, how about we just bring Palpatine back? Everybody's gonna eat that up. Or how about taking everybody's favorite hero, Luke Skywalker? That guy was bold and courageous, saw the good in humanity so much that he didn't even give up on his own father, even though he's an evil dictator, basically a space Nazi. He didn't give up on him, except now under Kathy's Star Wars, Luke is a nihilistic, depressed hobo who tried to murder his own nephew because he had a bad dream. Or the even greater idea of having Luke Skywalker drink a dinosaur elephant milk straight from the teats. Absolute cinema.
I can't watch anymore.
Or how about taking everybody else's other favorite hero, Han Solo, and turn that guy into a absentee father and failed husband and murdered by his own son. And Indiana Jones and the Dial of Diarrhea, that one, yep, was Kathy too. Where we have bring back Harrison Ford for one last hurrah. Wheel him out from his retirement home to be Indiana Jones as he has to use a time machine to save Hitler from the Romans. And as he traveled back in time, Indiana Jones gets depressed and suicidal. And he had to get punched out so he could be dragged back to the present so he wouldn't kill himself. And don't get me even started on Disney Plus shows, all those Star Wars shows that started off pretty well for Kathy. Mandalorian Season 1 sold a lot of Baby Yoda toys, but every season after every season ended up turning into slop. And, well, the recent hits, well, The Acolytes, that's also Kathy. When that show was pitched to Kathy, she cried because of how beautiful the premise of that show was.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Please hit me as hard as you can. Don't hold back.
And the last hit, Skeleton Crew, a show that I know you haven't heard of because, well, nobody watched it. It did so poorly, it couldn't even chart. And every single new Star Wars show did worse than the last. To now, the point Skeleton Crew is just gone like a fart in the wind. Even though it wasn't the worst show I've ever saw. And because Kathleen Kennedy did so much destruction to Star Wars, there was a lot of rumors being spread by fans, people claiming that, oh, they had inside knowledge that Kathleen Kennedy is going to get fired. And then time would pass and, well, Kathy's still there. Time goes on. Oh, my uncle works for Disney, and he said that Bob Iger's had enough of Kathy's nonsense, so she's about to get canned. Time goes on, Kathy's still there. So why should we believe the report this time that Kathleen Kennedy is actually going to move on? Well, instead of these reports coming from irrelevant little websites, these are coming from access media outlets, such outlets like The Hollywood Reporter, who I wouldn't trust with everything they report, especially when it comes to budgets. They like to put their own positive spin on things to do a great old favor to the Hollywood studios, but for things like acquisitions, hirings, things of that nature, well, they can be trusted. And so, with Kathleen Kennedy being told to be moving on at the end of the year, I think we can expect that to happen. And the man who is spearheading this news cycle is a man whose name sounds quite scrumptious. Matt Baloney. It might be Bellany, but here's to hoping that it's Baloney. And he, with Puck News, had this to report, saying Kennedy to finally step down at Lucasfilm. It's happening. After years of speculation and polite urging from observers like me, Kathleen Kennedy has informed Disney, as well as friends and associates, that she will exit as Lucasfilm president by the end of the year. Per 3 sources. Disney and Kennedy's personal publicist declined to comment. Not a huge shock, of course. Kennedy will be 72 in June, and the legendary movie producer, that's one way to put it, will have run Lucasfilm for 13 years as George Lucas's hand-picked steward under Disney. Kathy was actually planning to leave last year, I'm told, and had even set up an exit interview with a journalist, but she decided to stay for 1 more year. So is Kathleen Kennedy getting fired? Has Bob Iger had enough? Kicked her out the door for ruining Star Wars? No, she's retiring because she's almost 72 years old and she wants to live out the rest of her golden years in peace and calm in her mountains of wealth and not getting hate from random people online who don't like what she's doing with Star Wars.
But as soon as you start getting piles and piles of hate mail, endless messages...
I'm sorry I wrote all those letters. They probably was a bit much.
No, I got like 10,000 letters a day.
I was doing more like 12 to 13,000, especially after the new Indiana Jones came out.
Kathleen Kennedy's, her legacy, even though it's been pretty rough with Star Wars, I think the best way to encapsulate it is to say that's been chaotic. It's had some highs and lows, but all of the highs she's had happen at the beginning of her career, as she was listed as a producer for Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade. These are all movies that are monumental. If you go to the poster for Temple of Doom, at a poster for Temple of Doom, her name is listed, credited as a producer. It would be like right there. So that is something that you can never take away from her. Her legacy is cemented with these movies that will stand the test of time, will be beloved forever. She was a part of that, and you can't take that away from her, like I said, except once George handed the keys over to her, say, yes, take my baby, take Star Wars, and put it into the new era. I trust you. Well, since then, it's been a bit rough. And now with Kathy gone, does that mean that Star Wars is truly saved? Should we all be celebrating that now, just like a flip of a switch, Star Wars is going to be great again? I don't think it's that simple. I think that there's a lot of rot deep within that company. They need to drain the swamp to have any real impact. Clean house, scorched earth on everybody, bring a whole lot of new talent in. There was a comment that I saw in an RK Outpost video that I felt summarized this whole Kathleen Kennedy situation pretty well, saying that this, Kathleen Kennedy leaving, is like removing a tumor from a patient after it has already killed him. Yeah, with the future of Star Wars, I can't say I'm too hopeful. With people who could replace Kathleen Kennedy within Disney, people have speculated, oh, is Jon Favreau going to come in? Everybody loves him. He created Mandalorian. Everybody loved the beginning of Mandalorian. He also created the original Iron Man, one of my favorite movies ever. I'm always going to be very grateful for him for that. But his track record as of late, not too hot. Season 3 of Mando was a huge stinker, and he did the Lion King remake. Not the best creative thing I've ever seen. So, wouldn't want him to be taking over. Well, what about Dave Filoni? He's had a lot of input and influence on Star Wars as of late. He also created the animated Clone Wars shows. He was very close to George Lucas. He's portrayed as a disciple of George Lucas, but I don't want to put all my faith in him, as, well, he was in sole control of Ahsoka, and that show was something else. There's also been reports that Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios, could come in and take Kathy's spot. There was actually reports about 5 years ago, 2019, 2020, that he was going to come over from Marvel to Lucasfilms. And I think that actually would have been a pretty decent move because he would have left Marvel on a high note. This would have been right after Endgame. He would have been thought of as the hero, and now he's over to Star Wars to bring new life into that. But he stuck around with Marvel. Marvel has a huge black eye right now. Its reputation's in the toilet, and he has a lot of work to do to repair that. So I think his focus should be on doing that instead of going on to Star Wars, where that just sounds like even more headaches for him. So I think Kevin Feige should stay away from Star Wars. So I don't see too much hope from anybody internally within Star Wars to take Kathy's spot and make things great again. But I don't know, crazier things has happened.
You something big doo-doo this time.
So I think the best way to summarize this whole situation is that Star Wars is in shambles. The person mainly responsible for it, Kathleen Kennedy, is moving on. The Kathleen Kennedy era of Star Wars has come to a close. And we just gotta hope and pray that it somehow gets better.
Thanks for watching
DUCKFINDER
on YouTube. For more premium content, subscribe.